Okay, we should be live. Hello. Hello. We'll start in a sec. I just need to finish one quick thing. And obviously I'll just wait for a few people to join, but I already see that people are coming, so hello everyone. We will start soon. So don't worry about it. Yeah. I didn't have time to make like a track guide in video format for this weekend, because I kind of wanted to, but I didn't have time, and with SPA also I'd like to make it, you know, maybe a little bit better than usually those track guides that I do are. So let's try this sort of format. Let's have like a stream where you can ask questions and we can take more time doing it to talk about every single detail here and there for those who are interested. And then sometimes in the future I'll make like a proper SPA track guide and actual video format. But yeah, hello. Dzień dobry. And also I was saying that if I'm doing it in a stream format, I'll have to ask if anyone is interested in that. But for example, when we're doing a track guide, on top of that, for example, if someone in the audience is interested, for example, you're struggling with SPA, you want a, and it could be like a very quick live public coaching, let's say, like you can send me quickly your replay that you have maybe saved, and I can quickly go through it like corner by corner and quickly tell you, here you can improve that, here you can improve this. So I don't know, I mean, just throwing it out as an idea. If someone would like to do it and be so kind to do so, that would be amazing, because then I can go through the track with my lap that right now is rolling in the background, where I'll use that replay with the Ferrari, and then for example we can look at someone else's lap and be like, hey, here, this is for example an example of something being done really nicely. Or if someone is maybe a tiny bit off the pace and struggling in some areas, maybe then we can show those as some examples. Here's that, and so on, you know. So where can we send it? Well, if you are intrigued of doing that, I don't know, just send me a DM and we can do it. But yeah, if someone is interested like that, just throwing the idea out there. First I'm gonna do what I plan to do, and then after we've done with the guide itself, with my tour of the track, then let's see who's still gonna be around, and we'll maybe choose one person. I don't know, but I think it's gonna be a good idea, because with the video it just takes so much more time to edit it out, so it's all nice and polished, and obviously the stream can be like, well, I just have a free Sunday evening, yeah, or Monday evening, and I can do something like that for each weeks of LFM, which I think would be quite interesting actually, because we can then combine it in, like I said, this track guide, track tour thing, and then on top of that make like a public coaching session or Excuse me, technical difficulties. I'm back. Excuse me. I had to go for a minute, but I'm back. Yes. So, like I said, we're gonna get to it at the end with the with that coaching thing, and I think we can make it like a weekly thing, because why the hell not? It will be interesting. But don't worry, like properly fleshed out track guides in a video format, they're gonna be also coming out. But like I said, with Spa, I wanted to maybe give it some more time and create a more fleshed out thing in the future, because this time around I just didn't have time. So I mean, for Spa people still want something, so let's do it in a format of the stream, and at the end we'll see. So I'll have a lap for you today. We were, if you see, we were doing a 12-hour LFM endurance race recently here. It was mainly raining, but when we are preparing for the race, we are obviously testing in the dry, and during that testing with the Ferrari, I did quite a neat, put together quite a neat lap, which is gonna be like a race lap. It's not even gonna be a quali lap. This is gonna be a lap in a race stream, but it was nicely put together in a Ferrari, which is a popular car. So I thought, why the hell not? I'm gonna use that replay. And obviously with B, and this is also a lap with a LFM BOP, so it is with those 10 kilos that it has in LFM. So I'll use that lap. Since also I have replays from that 12 hours endurance race, which was done on that setup, but then in the wet, because it was raining a lot during the race. So we can take a look at maybe some of the things at Spa in the rain as well, because why the hell not? It's a stream, so we can just take so much more time talking about everything. Okay, but without further ado, let's just get into it, and all those extra things we'll get at the end when I'm done with this. So, coming into the first corner, very low speed hairpin. Your braking point will be around 100 meter board. It will be actually before 100 meters, and it's a corner where it's very difficult to spot the braking point, because you can see that 100 meter board, but you're going to be already past that, or it's going to be out of your vision as you're going to go on the brakes, and then it's difficult to pick anything that's further into the distance as your reference, because of course then it's all about how you perceive distance, and you have to just look for some arbitrary references that you can pick for your braking point. For example, I a lot of the times look at the road and try to look for a little bit of rubber that's laid down on the road, and obviously since it's a sim and the rubber that's laid down on the road, the texture is always in the same place. I'm always trying to aim, for example, personally, for where it's just beginning to be a bit darker, and there's a little darker spot in the middle of that rubbered line. But that's just for me, right? But overall, you kind of need to just have in mind when and where is that 100 meter board as you're passing by it, and just as you're about to get level with it, or you are around 1 or 2 car lengths ahead of it, like that, that's when you start braking, right? And here I have in front of the car that rubbered line. If you are asking about the setup for an Audi at HYMO, then 1.9.4 will be perfectly good, because remember that the setup name is the number in the setup name is the name when the setup was created, but that doesn't mean that, for example, for Audi, every single 1.9.4 setup is still good in 0.5, because the car didn't change since then. The setups that are done in 1.9.5 are obviously the most up to date, but for majority of the cars, if the number is older, they're still gonna be good. We've recently updated all the setups that were needed to be updated. So the Lamborghini is updated, the McLaren is updated, the Porsche is updated. The Porsche can be as well, like with 0.4 in the name, I don't remember, but every single setup that we have right now on offer should be updated, and no matter the number they have, they are updated. They were all done for those cars past each car's last physics update. Yeah, so they are done with the most recent physics update given on each car. For some cars it's gonna be 0.4, for some cars it's gonna be 0.5. Anyway, going back to it. It's a difficult braking zone, but that's just a car length or 2 car lengths before 100-meter board where you're levered with it. That's when you brake. Brake in a straight line and stay on the outside for as long as possible. The apex of the Lasors is the track is very wide, and apex of Lasors is gonna be far on the right, and you're gonna naturally try to want to go towards that apex, not to lose the vision of it. Right here we're watching a replay with quite high field of vision, but with some lower field of vision, or overall when you're driving, it's not that natural to stay fully on the outside of the road for very long periods of time. You're gonna start naturally going with the car to the inside even while braking. So while you're braking in a straight line, stay as much on the outside as possible to make sure that corner is gonna be as open as possible. But the track is really wide, so just remember that. And just as you're about to start trail braking, then you can finally start turning in as you're trail braking from the very outside of the road. And we want to prioritize the exit here, obviously, because we have a huge straight after it. Nice trail braking into the apex, very tight corner. Try to get as close to the wall and have all the braking done before you hit that dip. Yeah, because if you are gonna have to brake and still be braking past when that track dips right here, you're not gonna be able to use that dip for your advantage, because here what we should do is already go on the throttle, and then the car gets into that dip as you're going on the throttle, and now the rear grips up, and that will help your traction. So if you're gonna be still in the need of braking while you're hitting the dip, then you're not gonna be able to use it for your acceleration, to let the car accelerate. So we want to have the car nicely rotated and the braking done and the trail braking done before we hit that dip. So you do all the braking just before the dip, and then you hit that dip, you go on the throttle, the car nicely grips up in the rear, and then you can open up the steering and accelerate out of there. Well, you can get away in the Ferrari without trail braking a lot. It's similar in the McLaren that you can get away without trail braking a lot, but it's more that with some cars you can just get away easier without trail braking a lot. And in a Ferrari it's also the case that at high speed it's very aero dependent, right? So it's gonna be very similar to the McLaren in that regard, that you can just be very fast with your pedal inputs and just rely on the aero doing its thing. And because trail braking isn't so crucial in the car, you can easily get away without doing it a lot. But I would still say that even though that's the case, to properly maximize all you can get out of the car, you should still trail brake. Oh, and obviously at low speed, no matter the car, at low speed it's always gonna be crucial. And personally, I feel actually like with the Ferrari's ABS, you need to trail brake actually quite a lot because the ABS is intrusive. But maybe for me, I feel it more like that because I'm used to the other cars where ABS isn't that intrusive, and on top of that, the closer you're getting to the limit behavior of the car on the entry to the corner, then for me, that ABS that is intrusive causes more issues. I'm still racing in VR, always in VR when I'm driving. Still. At some point it's gonna maybe end, but I never know. I don't know. So remember, use all the width of the track, because the track is super wide, and if we use all the width, it's gonna nicely open up that corner. And depending on the FOV you're using, you could have limited vision again. So be careful not to veer to the inside of the road too much while braking in a straight line. Brake in a straight line to maximize the braking performance, and then nicely trail brake, get into the apex, get as close to the wall. You can still have, you know, a bit of space remaining here. It's very difficult to really get super close to that wall, but it's not necessary to be like millimeter perfect here. And remember, have all the braking and rotation done before that dip that we have here in the middle, and then when the car gets into the dip, fully on the throttle. You can stamp on the throttle here, be very aggressive because you want to also complete that rotation mid-corner on throttle, and then the car in that dip is gonna nicely grip up, release the steering to control that on throttle rotation, and accelerate out of the corner. Also, good thing to do here, and very common at Spa, later in the middle sector of the track is gonna require a lot of high-speed stability in some corners, and usually with lower wing, that's gonna be an issue to get that. So sometimes you're gonna be running a bit higher brake bias than you're usually used to at other high downforce tracks. But then for low speed rotation and braking performance, in coming into the bus stop and into turn 1, it's better to go with lower brake bias and lower traction control settings. So just when you're getting into turn 1, you have that nicely rotating car on the brakes with low brake bias, and then on the throttle you can just stop on the throttle and not have highly intrusive traction control level. For example, in the Ferrari, I was going down to TC2, I think George was going down to TC3, Valentin was using TC4, so it really depends what you feel like gives you the best exit and the best control on throttle as you're coming out of the hairpin. I felt like the 2 was enough, and for example with 4, for me it was too intrusive and I wasn't able to rotate the car aggressively on throttle, which I like doing. But obviously then in a Ferrari in the middle sector using like TC6 or 7, and that would totally kill the exit onto the straight and out of the bus stop as you're finishing the lap, right? So one little thing to remember for the last corner and the first corner of Spa, just change the brake bias a little down and go to a lower TC settings usually, because then you're gonna be using a higher brake bias and higher TC in the middle sector. Do I really sound like that? I don't know. The weird thing is that I get a lot of people telling me that I sound like my accent sounds Italian, which is very weird because apart from my nickname being Tortellini, which came up in a completely random way, I have absolutely no connections to Italy. Like zero. None. Does VR give me a competitive advantage? It's tough to say. I started driving in VR just because I liked the idea of it and it was very immersive, and only then I got fast. But I don't think this necessarily gives you a competitive advantage. I would say that I'm just used to it, so I'm better off just driving how I learned driving. But I think with how well you can set up a triple screen setup, there's no need to do VR, because then all the disadvantages of VR, with it just being less convenient and less comfortable, make it, for competitiveness sake, more difficult to fully utilize, you know? Because obviously VR comes with its advantages, but it has also a lot of disadvantages that are not... It's just so much less convenient to use on a daily basis. I got used to it because I just really like it, but it's not for everyone. I wouldn't say it gives me competitive advantage, because like depth perception on a super high resolution, high screen, properly set up, triple screen setup, you don't even care about the stereoscopic 3D effect that you get in VR, because your ability to perceive depth, if you can learn it on a single screen, like it can easily replace the stereoscopic 3D effect, which is more natural and easier. Like if you just put on VR and you can basically judge distance, because as a human being you're used to seeing everything in 3 dimensions, right? But then if you just learn driving on a triple screen setup, where everything's always being set up in the same way, because you're driving on your own setup and everything looks the same every single time, you learn to judge distance and perceive depth even on a single screen. You just learn that perspective, and then you don't need stereoscopic, however you pronounce that, 3D effect that VR gives you to perceive distance. And just looking around, like, you can still get the same field of vision in VR on the triple screen, even more so. So I don't really see it being any advantage whatsoever. It's just different, and it's a personal preference, I'd say. Anyway, on Rouge. On Rouge is gonna be that corner that everyone is always talking about when it comes to Spa, and it's a corner that often compromises your setup, because you need nice compliance over the compression at On Rouge as you're coming into Raidillon, and obviously in terms of stability at the top of Raidillon, that's also gonna be some sort of a challenge setup wise, because low downforce track, and you always need that tiny bit. You're always going to be on the edge of stability at the top. But obviously, with driving and how you're approaching the corner, it can make your life there a lot easier, because there are a lot of mistakes that people do through On Rouge that then cost them a lot at the top of Raidillon, because they just enter the whole complex and enter the compression in a very weird way that compromises the top a lot, and they always think that the top is the issue, but the issue is how you enter the corner and how you overly get the car into it. So how to avoid everything going to shit at the top of On Rouge, and how to get the nicest line through it. Overall, as it is right now, with TC off, meta, and TC being intrusive and kicking in random places for whatever reason, through On Rouge you don't really need traction control, but sometimes it's gonna just kick in at the bottom as you're clipping the curb, or at the top as you're going over that curb, and then it's just gonna compromise your run onto the straight. So in a sane way as you're lowering your ABS or turning down the traction control for turn 1 and the last and the bus stop. Just coming out of turn 1, you can flick the TC off if you have that binded on your controls, on your steering wheel, or on the button box, whatever you're using. Just flick it off. Like, you know, you're gonna start asking, well, how much does it give you in terms of time? It's not necessarily about how much time it gives you, because it's more about preventing it from randomly sometimes kicking in that can, by some amount, which is gonna be very little, compromise you. I don't even know what that amount is, if it's gonna be 100th or something like that, but I just know that it sometimes kicks in, so if I can prevent it from kicking in, why the hell not, right? It's that sort of thing. If you leave it on, most of the times it's not gonna even kick in, and you're gonna be fine. So if you can't be bothered, don't do it, and you're gonna be fine. If you're concerned about it, then just flick it off. And you're also not gonna care about it either, because you just have it in the back of your head to always flick it off anyway, and it's not like you're gonna somehow have a more difficult time from Rouge, because like the car there should be 100% stable throughout the whole corner and not be in need of traction control whatsoever. So it's that type of thing. Okay, so as I was saying, everything is about how you commit into the corner and what line you take at the bottom, because that's gonna define how then you exit out of it at the top of Raidillon. So take as much care as possible to open up the corner as much as possible, and because you want to take it from the outside. If you take it too tight, and then you're gonna have that turn-in be, if you're gonna take it tighter, you're gonna have the turn-in point being later, and you're gonna have to slow down a lot more, and then you're gonna have the corner a lot tighter and the exit a lot tighter. It's not worth it. So open up as much as possible and take it from the very outside, and then commit into it hard as the car goes into compression. So here, as it starts going up the hill and it compresses, commit hard and steer the car towards that curb on the inside. Now when the car is compressed, that's where it's gonna have the most amount of grip. So as it's compressed, you put it on the outside of the track, then on the outside of the track as it compresses, then you turn it in, then as the car is compressed and has a lot of grip, a lot of stability on the rear, then you can very hard commit into the corner. And only then, as the car is now getting lighter, we did all that at the bottom, because now the car suddenly goes lighter, you're going over the hill, and then all that load that was put into the car, at the bottom of the hill it was fine, because the car was compressed into the ground. Now there is a decompression, the car goes light, there's no more load on the tires, we need to straighten out the car. But we are able to straighten out the car because all the rotation was done at the bottom of the hill when the compression was. So we're minimizing the amount of rotation that's and the yaw that's being put into the car at the top of the hill when the car is unloaded. So to minimize any sort of stability issues that could happen at the top of the hill. If, like I said, if you're gonna be too lazy at the bottom or gonna turn in too late, then you're gonna end up in a situation where here, as the car is going light, and you can see how I'm doing little adjustments to the steering just to make sure the car isn't doing anything crazy. I'm not necessarily correcting any sort of slide here, but I'm just moving my steering around as the steering is going light, just to try to feel what's going on with the car, just to make sure everything is alright, right? But here the car is going very light on the rear especially, and as the car is going over that hill, and you would be still in need of putting more steering not to go over track limits, then it's very easy to get the snap. And on top of that, then you hit that second compression as you hit that curb here. So imagine you're in the situation where you initially start losing it here, yeah, and then you hit that second compression as the car hits that curb or hits that little bump at the top, and now suddenly initially you have a slide, then the car grips up and you get a tank slapper, and you're spinning left, or you completely lost it and you're spinning right into that wall, right? But there are multiple scenarios, so just do all the rotation at the bottom from the outside and be committed, right? So from the very outside and commit hard into it, and then when all the rotation is done and here the car starts to go lighter, you can straighten out the steering and the car will be fine at the top. And it should be easy flat in every single car. Setup wise, we are already past the times when it's difficult in terms of front right height control, because that used to be a problem in ACC before 1.9 update, where a lot of cars were bottoming out on the front. When that compression happens, maybe it's still a problem in some cars, but overall it shouldn't be a problem even with a very low and soft setup to clear that compression and clear the top curb. But for the car not to totally understeer as it hits that compression, sometimes it's gonna need a bit of bump stop at the rear to stop it compressing too much. Because then if it compresses too much, it's gonna understeer, or it's gonna compress too much here and suddenly do a wheelie. But we're talking about very extreme setup cases where the car is super soft or it has super high ranges, or very flat rake, and the car isn't designed to have that rake like old Porsche. But in majority of the cases you'll be fine. I think back in the day almost was more of an issue setup wise, and now to be fair, and the car can take it easily. And overall minimize the scrubbing that is happening here, because you'll be actually surprised, even if you feel like, well, I did the corner but still here at the top you still have quite a lot of turning to do with the steering, and even though you're maybe not struggling with any stability, you'll be actually surprised how much you're losing just because of the scrubbing you're doing at the top of Raidillon. So just minimize that and maximize how much rotation is done at the bottom of the hill. The more, the better. Obviously without lifting or slowing down, but just do it all at the bottom and then just minimize every single input that you're doing at the top and through Raidillon, and you'll be fine to maximize the run on the straight. I can later, or I'll do it now because it's because we're right between two corners. Very quickly, the settings for VR, those are my settings. 80% resolution scaling, epic shadows, epic anti-aliasing temporal, that's important, without using 5 gen. Any sort of upscaling, DLSS, FSR is completely shit in ACC, don't use it. Use resolution scaling, it's a lot better, even on the screen. Low post-processing, because that's very taxing and I don't like how it looks. It's just giving me a lot clearer picture with low post-processing. I don't care about mirrors frame rate, so I put that on lower. And then in VR, pixel density is 200, and VR resolution scale, that's gonna depend on your what's like the distance between lenses. Well, it's gonna define the scale of your virtual world. If you know VR, you know what I mean. Epic material quality, because that's for material quality of all the rubber that's on the road. I have that on because I think that it just looks nice, and I have a 4090 to deal with that, and those are my color settings. So I'm not blinded by the light, reduce contrast. And in VR, you can use a lot of sharpness. But remember, those are the settings that I'm using for a very powerful GPU. Anyway, now we can go back. A very quick detour to the setup menu, to the settings menu. Okay, so that's on Rouge. Now, the most straightforward braking zone in the entire game, because, I mean, almost every single time, every single car, the braking point is gonna be that curb. Obviously, you're braking before that curb, right? Oh yeah, easy 90 FPS. I mean, it's a 4090. You are braking before that curb. In your head, usually, when you're watching at the replay, suddenly you realize everything that you're doing, you're actually doing it later, because when it's all happening at speed and in motion, you feel like the curb is your braking point. Suddenly in the replay you realize, holy shit, that's like 3 car lengths? That's a lot. Like, that's actually a big distance. But in your head, you're using that still as a reference to what we call just before it. Just before it, go on the brakes. Also, bear in mind that I'm showing you a lap that's on full tank. This is fully prepped race trim car. So the car is very heavy at this stage, but still, as a reference, you're taking that curb. Obviously, if I show you everything at full speed, it's gonna look like I'm braking just before the curb. It's like almost I'm braking at the curb, but in reality, it's actually like 3 car lengths before it. It's just that everything is happening so fast. But at the end of the day, you are using this beginning of the curb as your reference to when to start going on the brakes. And if it's wet, obviously don't use that curb. But overall, to open up the corner as much as possible, you can use that curb, but be very careful with how you're going onto that curb and how you're going off that curb, because you don't want to steer too much here, because that's gonna ABS is gonna kick in and that's gonna compromise your braking distance. But you can use that curb just to open up the corner just a tiny bit and make the corner wider for yourself, because then you can see how then I'm pointing the car from the curb towards right, and basically suddenly there's less of a corner for me here because I have the car that's already pointing right. And again, I'm on the outside and I start trail braking into the corner from the very outside of the corner and towards the apex. I'm going slower and slower, trail braking more and more, and turning in more and more and more. You can use all that green part here on the inside, cut through it, and cut a lot, because you don't want to end up too wide here, because we're gonna have a section where all 3 corners are connected with each other. So you want to cut through all that green part. Sometimes you're even gonna touch the grass here, and the inside is unloaded, so it's not gonna be that difficult. But you don't want to end up too wide here, because now we want to have a tiny bit of space here to do the transition, unload the inside of the car to allow it to nicely climb that curb, right? If you're gonna be a tiny bit too wide here at the entry of Lecom, then you're gonna have to overly brake here to make this corner, or you're gonna clutter into this curb, and overall it's gonna be very awkward the way you're gonna be climbing that curb on the inside, because you want to cut that curb. So go for a line that's gonna and cut that inside, that's just gonna position you somewhere in the middle here. So then from the middle you can just double the brakes, go off throttle, load up front tires, do the transition, climb that curb with the inside of the car being unloaded, and you want to also here do it also in an aggressive way, because coming out of this corner you also want to keep tight for the next corner, because we have the third corner in the section coming up, and they're all connected, right? So the first is connected to the second, and the second is connected straight to third corner. So if you compromise the first, then that would compromise already this one, and if this one would be compromised, straight away the exit of Malmedy would be also compromised. So don't go wide on the entry after the straight, because that would fuck up entire section, right? Here just be in the middle, then aggressive transition, keep it tight, because here we want to prioritize that right-hander. Keep it very, very tight, because you can see how early I need to be on the left side of the road. If I would leave it, if I would go too wide and leave it too late, I would end up being either on the inside of the track, or then in a desperate way to get to the outside of the corner, I would have a car that maybe would be still on the outside, but then would be pointing towards those trees, pointing to the left, which I don't want. I want the car with the corner being opened up, but at the same time I want the car that's already not pointing to the left. I want the car to be already pointing straight, or even to the right as early as possible, right? But to do that, this corner has, I cannot use all the exit here. I need to keep it very, very tight, and that's why here we're leaving ourselves space, so this corner I can do aggressive transition and keep it very, very tight. I'm even rotating the car on the throttle here. I'm being aggressive on the throttle here to go to the inside as early as possible, and now the corner is nicely prepared for the exit of Malmedy. That entire section is done in a way that you're always preparing the exit here. And again, similar as here was, dab of the brake sometimes, hard off the throttle for the transition. Here it's gonna be the same with the transition. Prepare the car and then off the throttle, sometimes a dab of the brakes, commit into it, and aim to just go slightly. Sometimes you can, some cars will take that curb easily. I don't like taking that curb, because then as you come off it, I have less control over what's happening, and then it's difficult to manage your exit and track limits. So I just aim to just maybe graze with the inside tires that inner curb, but I don't like climbing it. For some people it just works that they climb that curb and the car is nice and settled, but overall I wouldn't say that's the way to go. Just go around that curb and on throttle as early as possible, and there's a lot of space to use here, because look how much runoff there is past that curb. And obviously for the track limits, this is gonna be the limit. You have to have at least 2 tires on that yellow and red curb. That little green patch, that's no longer track limits. And obviously here, if you would go past that white line, I think it's also gonna be a cut. Yes, but you don't want here also important thing to mention, maybe that I didn't mention, when you're cutting this, cut as much as possible, but without the outside tires climbing that curb, because they are the ones that are loaded up, and they're doing majority of the work. So you can unload the inside tires and easily make them climb that curb, but throughout the corner, the outside tires are the ones that are doing majority of the job. So even though you're cutting as much as possible, don't climb the inside curb with the inside of the tire, because that's just gonna compromise the work they're doing there. So commit as much onto the curb, but don't cut it fully. And here, yeah, just go on the throttle as early as possible in a way that you can just clip that apex there and just extend as much as possible. It's very difficult there to get the exit right, but it's gonna be for your consistency and ability to repeat that lap after lap after lap. It's gonna be important to get positioning into the corner right. If you get the positioning into the corner right with the section of 2 corners before, then that's gonna make your corners so much easier, because it's so easy here to just fuck up the way you do the previous 2 corners, and then your entire run, and every single time you're gonna be then with the car that's pointing a bit more right, pointing a bit more left, sometimes in the middle, sometimes on the outside, fully right. So if you're gonna every single lap have different situation here, then it's gonna be very difficult for you to manage that. So make sure that every single time you're aiming to place the car here, and then that corner is just gonna become so much more easier. And you can gain a lot of time here with that exit. Okay, another corner where the curve that's on the outside is your braking zone and braking reference, so you just see where it is, just about you're about to hit it, go on the brakes, brake in a straight line, and here slowly throughout the braking zone already you can start going to the inside of the corner, and then as you're about to get to the corner you can start trail braking. There's a lot of grip here on the inside, and the corner is a little cambered. There's very little grip on the outside there, so don't go too wide. And there are 2 different ways how you can take the corner. It really depends on what you feel works for you the best, but overall it is gonna be sort of a double apex, that we were gonna have an first apex here and then the second apex somewhere around here, and then you're gonna be missing the middle of the corner. So it's not gonna be like going from the outside and then trail braking to the middle and then hitting the apex and then accelerating, because the corner is too long to do that. That's gonna fuck up the run through your corner if you're aiming to do that. Treat it more as a double apex, but you're not really going for a very aggressive V that you're going to the inside and then fully to the outside and then V'ing the corner and going back to the inside. That's gonna be too aggressive in the other direction, right? Don't do that. Don't do that either. But overall, in your head, treat it as a double apex. You're just hitting the first apex as you're braking, and then you're going to the outside just a little bit in the middle, and then as you're starting accelerating, then you're aiming to, from the middle of the road, hit the second apex on the inside, right? Look how it's gonna look like. Trail braking, committing early into the corner, trail braking to the middle of the corner as you're going a tiny bit wide, and then you're going on the throttle, you're rotating the car on the throttle, and you're clipping the second apex. And then also you don't need to go super wide there, because again the next corner is coming up so fast that you need to be already pointing towards the right and position on the right side of the road. You cannot go too wide here. If you're gonna go here on the throttle too early, here suddenly the camber of the road disappears, it becomes super slidey, you'll be turning right too much, and suddenly here the car would have a snap, and that's not what you want. So obviously you want to maximize how early you're going on the throttle, but you're not gonna use all the road here, because you're just not gonna be able to. You would get a snap if you would do that, or you would if you would manage to sort out the car nicely, then you would compromise the position for next corner too much. So yeah, it's a very difficult and technical corner in a way, in terms of technique. What you're doing with the braking, what you're doing with the throttle on the exit, so how you're trail braking here and how deep into the corner you're able to brake. That's gonna be very difficult but very crucial. How you're going on the throttle and how you're able to control that rotation on throttle with the car struggling for rear grip is gonna be technique wise a very demanding corner and very challenging. But in terms of its concept, like I said, it's very, very simple. The braking point is very straightforward. Then you have the first apex, you go a tiny bit wider. Second apex, don't go too wide, be somewhere where that maca here is, and you'll be fine. You'll be completely fine. like in terms of its geometry, right? It's very simple. It's such a straightforward corner. But technique-wise, it's going to be very challenging because of the undulations and low grip, overall low grip situation. But in terms of geometry of that corner, it's super simple. Whoops. And for the most common issues on this corner as well, like I said, it's going to be crucial to brake deep into the corner, right? What a lot of people will do, they will brake and then they'll already be off the brakes, and here they would be steering the car and rotating the car only with the steering. You want to initiate a lot of rotation here on the brakes and brake as deep into the corner as possible. Of course, it's not gonna be you're not gonna be able in some situations to fully push that braking all the way to the moment when you're going on the throttle. That's not gonna be possible in all the cars and all situations. But overall, people are not pushing that braking zone deep enough into the corner. They would be like already off the brakes here and then steering only with the steering and being front tires limited, and the rear would be completely planted and the car would be settled. And they would feel like that's all the grip the car has, when in reality they just have a car that's super stable, front tire limited, while the rear tires were not utilized at all. What we need to do is go with the brakes deep into the corner and be on the limit of the rear tires, and then it's gonna rotate a lot nicer, while at the same time you're gonna be able to bring more speed into the corner. And then continue that rotation by just being aggressive on the throttle on the exit, continuing that rotation and you're not gonna have to be as patient with the throttle, because if you are stuck with a front limited and understeer car in the middle of the corner, then all you can do to wait for the understeer to disappear is just be patient and wait and wait and wait and wait. With this, you don't need to wait because you were trail braking throughout the corner. The car was nicely rotating in the middle, and because it was nicely rotated, then you can go on the throttle, and then the car will continue rotating rather than continue understeering. Okay. No name. There are two ways you can enter that. You can enter that while using the green part, or enter it without using the green part. I'm the type of guy who never uses the green part, and I never learned how to use it, even though some people do use it just because it opens up the corner more, but you have to be a lot more cautious how you do it, and it requires a lot less steering input. I'm a lot more aggressive with my inputs, and my driving style doesn't really work on it, and I can't be asked to learn it because I think it gives you so little time that I just found it to not be worth it. For me, it's not repeatable easily. But for example, Valentin, because he was in the session as well here, he was always doing that line. So any lap that I can pick, he is using it. So he's making sure that he enters that curb early, and then already as he has the tires past the yellow and red curb, then he goes on the brakes, he minimizes how much he's steering, and the car nicely goes into the corner. But I don't like the way that works. That just doesn't gel with me, so I'm not using it, because I'd rather just use standard curve and here be more aggressive with the brake and more aggressive with the steering, with the way how I initiate rotation into the corner. I like it more in that way. So I'd say it's up to you what you want. You can use that curve, but then you have to be on that curve early and have the car very straight, and you have to always have the car, I'm gonna show it to you again, always have the car in the same exact position, and you have to make sure that you're repeating it every single time perfectly. Because if you have something wrong, it's gonna bite you. And you have to be very, very careful with your steering input. You have to really minimize it, because that car unsettles the car a tiny bit, and the car almost automatically just steers into the corner. If you do something wrong, it's just gonna unsettle the car. So I just wouldn't do it. But if you want to, just minimize the braking input and the steering input you'll do, and just make sure that you're always putting the car in that particular spot. But let's go back to the way I'm doing it. Here. So just put the car here on the outside. As you can see, the rubber is here as you're normally coming off that curb. So just before that rubber, have the car positioned on that curb, straightened out, and it also is important to say, if you are using that curb, have the outside tires fully on that curb. If you are not using that green part, you cannot have any part of the tire on that green part, because then it's gonna unsettle. So it's either all the tire or none of it. If you have a tiny bit of it, then the car is gonna go into all sorts of troubles, right? So it's either all of it or none. So I'm driving in a way that I'm trying to use as much of the red and yellow part, but I can't go past that. If I go past that, then I go into a spin, basically, because now that rear tire then grabs that curb, and it just unsettles the rear and the car, and I lose the rear, and I have to correct it. So it's either all or nothing. So maximize it, try to maximize it, but don't go past that. Anyway, then you can see the rubber. You go on the brakes. Don't be too aggressive here on the brakes, because you're loading up the car quite aggressively. And the apex is quite straightforward. It's where the green part on the inside of the corner is. And then when you are hitting the apex straight away, you can go on the throttle. It's gonna be difficult corner in terms of track limits and in terms of repeatability again, but again, how it was in that Lecom section in Malmedy earlier, if you position the car into the corner always in the same way, then that's gonna make it so much more repeatable and easier to just consistently lap after lap hit your marks. So it's very important in those corners that are connected to always be aware of your car positioning. Just a little brake input. Sorry, maybe I'm gonna show it again without that replay thing. Tap off the brake, go lower on the gear, rotate the car to the apex, and from the apex is just straightforward, go on the throttle and use all the road on the exit. Track limits now. You may not know, but that gutter is within track limits. So you can use that gutter, and sometimes for whatever reason it even accepts a valid lap if you're like a centimeter outside of it, but that's rare, and I would say that's a bug then. But overall you can aim, if you are precise enough and you feel like you can aim for that, you can aim to be on that gutter. That's usually what I aim for. When I'm exiting that corner, I'm aiming to have my outside tires on that gutter, and that is the track limit. And there's gonna be other parts of the corner where it's not gonna be only like how it was here on the outside, where you have the red and yellow curb and then already AstroTurf. Here there's gonna be other parts of the track from here on out, where there's also gonna be that gutter on the outside past the red and yellow curb, and you can always use that gutter. That counts within the track limit. So if you are precise enough and you feel like you can take advantage of that, then feel free to do so, because that's just still valid. and it really looks like you are pushing the limits, and whoa, how the hell is valid? Well, that green gutter still counts in as within track limits. Boom. A very difficult corner in terms of stability. That's gonna be another corner that usually people are gonna be struggling with, because low aero track, low stability, and here you're very aggressively loading up the car into high speed corner and fully throwing the car in there. So with lower aero setups, people are generally that's gonna be the main point where all the struggle is gonna be at, that entry. So very important to be gentle with your brakes and steering input here as you're throwing the car into the corner. Very difficult to get a reference when to brake and when to turn in. Like, I'm just looking into the distance already at the apex, and if you're looking into the distance, it's gonna be easier for you to judge that distance and overall aim for the trajectory that you want to take from the outside of the corner and from the entry into that apex. Initially we can be hard on the brakes, but then you're gonna have to go off the brakes really hard, right? So earlier when someone asked me if you don't really need to trail brake a lot in the Ferrari, well, this is the type of corner where you don't really need to trail brake, and you actually have to go off the brakes, not only in the Ferrari but in most of the cars. You just have to go off the brakes, just stabilize the car, and then let the aero do its job, right? But earlier we had a corner like Brussels here, where here you do have to trail brake, because it's all about mechanical grip and trying to push that rotation deep into the corner. And here we have the opposite, where the rotation just automatically comes in and the car is inherently unstable. So here you're braking into the corner while minimizing the steering to stabilize the car, and then as you're about to use more steering, then you go fully off the brakes to keep that stability, right? And you just let the aero do its job, and you need to be patient then with the throttle not to go too wide. So try to carry as much speed as possible, maximize the stability that you can get, be patient with the throttle. When you feel like it's the time to go on the throttle, stamp on it and you'll be fine. It's very difficult to judge when to go on the throttle if you are inconsistent with your entry, because if you don't throw the car in enough on the entry, and then here it's gonna be understeering. If you go too early on the throttle, it's just gonna understeer throughout the entire rest of Pool. If you're gonna initiate too much rotation, or suddenly you're used to that opposite, that usually the car just understeers, and then you're gonna wait too much with the throttle, you're just gonna lose tons of time, because there's so much more time to be gained if you are early with the throttle here. So I mean, it's as always the balance, but the entry is everything here in this corner, and then it's just about the timing of when you go on the throttle, but just about getting the feel for how much that little subtle rotation there is under braking, maximizing how much stability there is without making the car understeer, but just trying to keep it stable, and then all about working on the timing when to go on the throttle, because here you want the car to be able to come back to the inside to minimize overall the scrubbing that's happening, because if you have a car that's gonna then understeer towards the outside of the track, it's gonna scrub too much speed and overall be slower. Okay, final chicane. Again, you just use the curb on the outside as the braking zone, as a braking reference. Very easy. And from the outside to the inside, you're trail braking, bringing the speed similarly as into Brussels, deep into the corner, as the AstroTurf on the inside. There is a little bit of it on the inside curb, yes. You can use that as an apex. So you're braking deep throughout the corner and trail braking towards it, and then from that point you start accelerating a little to the middle of the track, again connected corners, then from the middle, transition, go off the throttle. You can afford to do that transition in quite an aggressive way. Just graze that curb a little bit, go early on the throttle, being in the middle of the road and working on that track and car positioning again is gonna be like in every other connected corner before, crucial for repeatability and consistency of it. And this corner is difficult in terms of timing and getting it right, but mainly issues come from getting this braking zone and especially this positioning here wrong, and then it's gonna be different every single lap again, and you then you have trouble with executing the next corner properly. So if you make sure that here every single time the car is positioned in the middle of the road exactly where you want it, then it's gonna be so much easier for you to work on this corner and just transition into the corner, clip the curb, go early on the throttle, and here again you can use the gutter on the outside. Let's take a look at it from the outside. So brake on the curb, trail brake throughout the braking zone deep into the corner. That's very important here, to trail brake deep into the corner. Then here I am going a tiny bit too wide, bear in mind. So you want to hack that curb just a tiny bit more and then get to the middle of the road. It wasn't that bad, so I lost half a tenth here. It's nothing crazy, but overall, like you see, it's important to hack that curb to make sure that here you have nice positioning, and then from the middle of the road, aggressive transition to the curb. The curb is your apex, that's very early into the corner, and then from that curb already full throttle, and you're accelerating throughout the whole corner. If you're gonna here open up the corner nicely, you're gonna be able to here release the steering and don't have much traction problems, because you can see as the car is accelerating, I'm just releasing the steering, and there's not that much rotation that's actually needed to be done at the exit of the corner, like somewhere around here, right? So the car is not snapping anymore, because here the corner is open up, and then majority of the rotation is done here with the committed entry, and then I can nicely accelerate out of it. Another corner where, oops, I actually touched the grass here. That's interesting, I never noticed it. But don't do it, it's very easy to unsettle the car here. Could be actually a replay bug that the tire actually didn't go over there. It's like straight away transitioned with the contact patch being on the track to being on the curb, like, and it was between two ticks of physics. I don't know. It could be because it just, like, I didn't even feel like that it hit. Normally I would feel. Anyway, you can touch that curb a tiny bit just to maximize the width of the track, but overall don't do it because it's easy, like you saw there, to hit that grass here, and overall most of the time, almost all the time, it's gonna cause the rear to just jump. You don't want that. Brake hard, trail brake, and again, an apex is gonna be where that green part ends. So I would aim for that, where that green part ends. Aim to hit the apex here, and from that apex already start accelerating. Even earlier than that, already start accelerating, because this acceleration zone here, you're gonna carry all the way throughout the straight to the bus stop. You're gonna carry all that speed through here. So that acceleration zone, it's very, to gain all the time, it's gonna be very important to carry the speed into the corner on top of that, but start with the great exit, right? The exit here is way more important than the entry. If you can add to that really nice exit an entry that's pushed deep into the corner and trail braking pushed deeper and deeper, that's nice. But don't compromise the exit with that, right? Prioritize the exit. The exit needs to be done first. When you're practicing, get the entry first, get the hang of how to do get the exit first, get the hang of how you're doing the exit first, because exit needs to be prioritized, and then to that exit, then add the entry, push it more and more and more deeper into the corner. Straight back towards that apex, and from the apex go on the throttle, and again use all the road. Majority of the times you can go all the way to the outside of the AstroTurf, because majority cars are wide enough that you're not gonna invalidate the lap by going past the gutter. That's, like I said earlier, is still track limits, because you would be already in the gravel. But some cars are smaller, or sometimes you still have you're still having the contact patch be on the very outside of that AstroTurf, and then you're past the track limits. So just be careful that you can actually go all the way to the outside of track limits without still being in the gravel and still invalidate the lap. So just be careful there. Now, Stavelot, a corner where a lot of people get tremendous amount of understeer. Here, just past that exit, past this exit, as you're gonna straighten out the car, another corner where you can just turn off the TC, because as you're going off that curb, and as you're sometimes using the curb on the inside, that could trigger the TC and just straighten out the car. And you want to avoid that, because usually you're fighting with that understeer. So any type of traction control intervention there is gonna compromise your overall speed and the acceleration that and the momentum you're carrying out of there, but also sometimes just straighten out the car, which you don't want, because here you want to be very aggressive. Look how aggressive I am coming off that curb, and that's gonna allow the car to actually lose a little bit of stability and balance there, rotate the car as it's aggressively coming off the curb, and it's gonna rotate it there, and it's gonna make the rest of the corner easily without an issue. But you need to be very committed with that, with how you enter that corner as you're coming off that curb. You have to be very, very committed here. If you are very lazy here with the input, and you're steering in a very lazy way and in an inconsistent way, sometimes you're gonna be a bit closer into that curb, sometimes you're gonna be a bit wider, sometimes the car is gonna be sometimes the car is gonna stick, sometimes it's not gonna stick. If you're gonna be lazy with your input, you're gonna get mixed results. So work on your timing and be very committed here. Just commit hard into the corner, and if you're gonna just time it right, the car is gonna nicely rotate on that curb as it's coming off it. Here, bam, it's gonna nicely rotate as you're coming off that curb, and it's gonna take the rest of the corner easily. Just be committed there. You can show it maybe once more time from the outside, so you know when's the moment to bump here. Just commit into it, and the car is gonna make it flat easily. Then just minimize the scrubbing that you're doing and the speed that you're scrubbing of the car. Focus on your gear shift and bus stop left, only bus stop left. So the braking point is going to be 150 meter board, sorry. But obviously you're going past it. You're literally, where's that board? There's that board, yep. So remember that it's going to be already out of your vision when you're going past it, but you can use for reference, you know, knowing that, well, you are passing this line, so, you know, a few car lengths past that line, and obviously most of the time you just see where the rubber is laid down on the road, so you can take that as sort of a reference that if you just judge your distance from you to that rubbered patch on the road, on the braking zone, and just try to hit your braking point of somewhere around 150 meters. Stay to the outside for as long as possible, and this is similar to turn 1. This is literally a copy paste of turn 1. It's just that in terms of entry, it's just a copy paste of turn 1. Brake as long as possible in a straight line, and then just start trail braking towards the apex. Here you can allow here you don't have to stop before the apex like here in turn 1 there was before the dip, but I'm saying just in terms of track usage on the outside and trail braking technique, that's gonna be similar as turn 1. But overall allow the car to run deeper into the corner, as here we're just transitioning into another slow speed corner and we're gonna be prioritizing the exit there, but here we're prioritizing the entry and we're trying to carry that high speed and carry the speed that we're overall carrying through the corner deep into the corner. So brake and carry the speed deep into that first part of bus stop, then just accelerate between the two corners. You can tap a brake a little bit to allow the car to get into the second part of the corner easier, and here you're prioritizing the exit, so here you're going off the on the throttle already before you're actually on the apex itself. Right, so here you're still braking and you're still decelerating. After past that cap, you're still decelerating. Only now you are accelerating and just working on your position for the second one. Then you're very aggressively, you need to commit into that second corner. You maybe a little dab of brakes to help it rotate, and then early here before the apex, early on the throttle, and rotate it on the throttle and nicely out of the corner. And like I said, also coming into the bus stop, go lower with brake bias, go lower with traction control. That's gonna help the car here rotate at low speed, and it's gonna help you here be aggressive on the throttle and complete that rotation on throttle out of the bus stop, and overall not interfere too much with your acceleration. And that's the lap of Spa. Let me show you that bus stop once again from the outside. Okay, I'm gonna show you once more entire lap so you can watch it at full speed. So what do you think, guys, of the format? I guess now that we finished that, now that's finally the time for that questions, or like I said earlier, if someone wants to and has like a spare replay of Spa lying around and like kind of wants to know what's wrong with his driving there, maybe shoot me a quick DM with a replay, and I can quickly just take a look at it, and you can do like I said, a public coaching session very quickly. It's not going to be a full coaching session, but we can quickly take a look at a lap of Spa and just point out the little things here and there. It could be interesting if we could get someone's replay like that, because then, you know, this is a 216.9 race lap, but if we can have someone that is, you know, even like 2 seconds of the pace or something like that, if we could get a replay like that, I could have some like examples of things being done wrong, so then I can nicely show an explanation why is that. It's just so much easier than for you to visually understand what's happening. If someone can quickly see if they have like a replay like that laying around, that could come in handy. Jeez, I wasn't talking for such a long time, so much, so I'm losing my voice, but I'm gonna be fine. I'll be fine. Yeah, if you could find that 219 and if you're happy with me showing it on the stream, then shoot me a quick DM or send me it on Discord, and I can quickly take a look at it. Yeah. What track do we have next week on LFM actually? Let me already check. Because obviously, let's try to do it with the LFM tracks. Well, let's try to do it for a 25-minute ones, because they're just so much more popular, I think. But also it depends what are the tracks that are available, and then we can pick one of them. Oh my fucking god, not Suzuka. I hate Suzuka. Nah, well, we can do Suzuka, sure, but oh my god. I mean, it's just so technically demanding, the track. Okay, let me quickly check. I have a lap indeed, thank you, sir. Okay, let me go into the replay. So yeah, next week it's gonna be Suzuka, and let me check what the track is for the and Solder, if I'm right. So yeah, well, there is no fucking way we're doing Solder, so we are doing Suzuka. Well, I thank you, because I mean, first of all, let's see if it works, and if even works. Yes, it works. This is the replay, right? So we have here a 219. Woo! There was a tank slapper at the top of Raidillon. But yeah, we have that. We have the replay, so let's take a look at it. Give me a sec. Yeah, it is lap 2. It is lap 2, 19.2. So we're gonna take a look at it. It is an Audi, so it is a tiny bit different of a car with how you're going on the throttle compared to a Ferrari, because Ferrari, you bear in mind that I showed you a lap with a Ferrari where that car required very aggressive throttle applications. It's the car where you just need to slam the throttle to let up the toolbox to pull up as much as possible, and its great traction control helps you a lot there. So, but with the Audi, it's a different type of engine with a way more linear power delivery and way more instantaneous power delivery. A one where you have so much more control over it. but then on top of that, the car handles that power in a different way and requires you to be way more smooth with the way you apply that power. So just bear that in mind, that Audi is gonna require a bit smoother throttle control. Mm. 15.8, that's a great lap, but for the purposes of the stream, I'd rather look at a lap something like a 2.19, because then some mistakes that I would like to show, they will be so much more visible for all the other viewers to understand what's happening. Because sometimes like a difference between a low 15 and a 15.8, sure, we can talk about differences there, but they're gonna be so much more difficult for majority of people to just straight away understand why and what's happening there, versus the kind of mistakes that make a low 15 go into a low 19, right? Not a high 15. Okay, so let me just watch the lap. Let's just watch the lap, and then we're gonna talk about it. Because, you know, I need to see it first. Okay. Audi's a bitch on throttle, isn't he? Okay, nice and clean bus stop. So, especially early part of the lap, there's gonna be a few things to talk about. So, overall, let's have in mind that sure the lap had a few mistakes here and there, but rather than thinking about why a given mistake made it slow, because I mean it's just a mistake. It's obvious that it's gonna be slow. It's not gonna be me explaining to you how the car where you're lifting on the exit is slow. You understand why it's slow when you're lifting on the exit of pool, right? That's not the problem. The problem will be why it happened in the first place. Exactly. So it's not about me telling you it wasn't a clean lap. I can see, I can definitely see how with the clean lap exactly you could do an 18, even a low 18. That's not a problem. But there will be still some issues in the corners that looked quite clean, where even though they were clean, there were issues, inherent issues with them, with the approach you took there, that even if that approach you would execute clean, it would be still slow, right? Okay, so for example, turn 1. Overall, it doesn't look that bad. You miss an apex just a tiny bit, but the entry is fine. Then maybe you don't get huge snap on the exit. The car is not struggling for grip, and it's very nice and clean. But here, if you could have the braking a tiny bit further and more of it as you're going into the corner still, right? Because here we are still quite far, quite a bit before the apex itself, and you're already going almost, and you are going fully off the brakes at this point and just cranking up this thing, right? And here the problem with that is that you stabilize the car very early before that apex and very early before the exit, which makes it so that when you're here going on the throttle, the car surely is going to be really stable, but here is the car is still in need of rotation. You still need to rotate it quite a lot. And here, as you're going on the throttle, there is that rotation that needs to come, and then you have to sort it out. And because then you have to sort it out, and the car has that slide on the exit that is quite severe and late on the exit, right? Because that slide didn't happen straight away after that dip, right? The slide didn't happen here. The slide for you happened later here because you were having to steer throughout entire exit, right? What should happen is whoa, too fast. That should happen. You should have been driving 4 times faster. What should happen here, you should be braking deeper into the corner, so you're having the car that isn't suddenly here front tires limited only. You should have a car that's both front and rear tires limited, that's rotating all the way to the apex. So here now the tires would be at the edge of the grip as well, and then you would go on the throttle, and then the car would rotate on the apex because the rears would be at the limit, and you would also be able to release the steering, and then you would avoid that snap you had on the exit, right? Because that slide on throttle wouldn't happen late on the exit. It would happen just at the very beginning. Just you would be just completing the rotation that you're doing through the hairpin, but then straight away you would straighten out the car, and it would nicely exit out of the corner and start gaining momentum. While here you have you're overly stabilizing the car on the entry. Then on the exit it looks like everything is fine, but that little slide that should happen there, and will always happen at low speed, because of that it happens too late in the exit. Then you're sorting it out too late on the exit, and that compromises overall acceleration and momentum that you are able to carry out of here. So look how the car throughout entire corner goes in a very weird way back and forth between different states of balance, right? So initially it's oversteery, then you're stabilizing it, then it becomes understeery, then you're going initially on the throttle and you're getting a slide, it becomes again oversteery, and then you're stabilizing it and it becomes again stable, right? So look how many times it's going between different states. So suddenly there is a lot of rotation, low rotation, then again a lot of rotation, and again low rotation, right? That's not what we want. We want to make it so throughout the whole corner. And remember that what I'm saying right now, this applies to every single corner everywhere, right? You don't want those shifts in the car behavior throughout the corner to happen so often. You don't want that. You want throughout every single corner to be that you're just adding more and more rotation to the middle of the corner, then rotation peaks in the peaks in the middle of the corner, and then from the middle of the corner, then you release the rotation smoothly, that there is less and less and less of it throughout the whole corner to the exit. Yeah. Let me show you again that lap that I did, so you can just see a clear comparison between the two. So the main thing to take away from here is not necessarily exact inputs that you did, but more of an understanding of the overall approach that you took into it and what it makes you then do with your inputs, right? It's not about the inputs themselves, right? So there's trail braking and adding more and more rotation to the apex of the corner. Now the rotation peaks, and now I go on the throttle, and here it rotates very early on throttle, and from here I'm already stabilizing the car, and now the car nicely accelerates out of there. That little rotation on throttle was very early, and then it was straight away sorted out, straight away. Right? The corner wheel is even easier to see, and then you took a completely wrong approach in there. On top of that, here, look how from the entire corner the car doesn't go between different states where it's suddenly low rotation, high rotation, low rotation, high rotation. There's just one point at which the rotation peaks, and you're just adding more and more and more and more and more and more and more rotation to the middle of the corner where the speed is at its minimum, and then as the speed is rising, there's less and less and less rotation, right? And that's the same thing that was here that helped me so much on the exit, where, like I said, usually people struggle with. The faster I go, there's less and less and less and less and less rotation, right? So we try to connect amount of rotation that you're asking out of the car to the speed you're traveling at. The slower the car travels, the higher its overall potential to rotate is. The faster it's going, the less the car can rotate. So if you drive in a way that the slower you are, the more you're rotating the car, and the faster you go, you're rotating the car less, it's gonna create your driving overall and make it so much smoother. It's gonna make you go for the lines that are so much easier to hit, because it just naturally suits how the car is gonna behave, right? While right now you approach that corner in a way, that turn one, let me show you again, and it goes for every other corner. There was just a lot of changes of balance in the car that just made it slide or understeer in various ways, right? So for example, you got an understeer here in the middle that you had to wait for, then you had an oversteer here that you had to correct, right? So, I mean, sometimes you are just gonna have to stabilize the corner, stabilize the car throughout the corner at some point, right? But my point is more that here you stabilized it way too much. So you should have surely stabilized it if you felt like you're losing it, but not to the point that you're completely killing off the rotation. Because you should have surely stabilized the car, but maybe coming off the brake a tiny bit more if you feel like the car is over rotating, right? But you should have kept that rotation going all the way to the minimum speed of the corner, because you totally killed off the rotation and then you have to start it off again, right? And you cannot afford to change that rotation state of the car and go from understeer to oversteer, right? Or from the car rotating to car not rotating, and then starting initiating rotation again, and then killing that rotation again, right? You cannot really change that state so many times for the car. It needs to happen only once. You need to add rotation once to the minimum speed point, and then from the minimum speed point, and as you start accelerating, just release that rotation. Surely you're gonna have to play around with the car as it sliding a little bit in a slip angle the whole time, and it has to be that very finesse dance on the limit, right? But overall, as you're looking from the outside, which is especially visible from the third person perspective with the following camera, you can see how the car here in the middle just fully stabilizes, and then on the exit also goes into a state, suddenly into a state of oversteer, right? It's not smooth at all. There's suddenly stability, high rotation, stability, high rotation, stability, right? It just goes between different states, too much in the corner. The grip isn't used in a smooth way. Exactly. And you just add it 10th by 10th by 10th, and it's also that as it stands right now, if you're having moments like that, overall driving like that will cause the car to have more moments and lose composure as it's going between those different states, right? As it's going from oversteer to understeer, as it's gaining and losing stability, you always have to manage it and sort it out, and that will always lose you more time on top of it, because you're having to sort out those issues. It's not that the car going from understeer to oversteer or just changing its balance is gonna lose a certain amount of time on its own. Surely it's gonna overall lower the car's grip as you're playing with it, but mostly it will just cause a certain situation and a problem that then you have to sort out, and that's what's causing you the loss of time mainly, right? For example, that snap on the exit there. So it's not suddenly that the middle of the corner was slow. The middle of the corner was kind of okay. Maybe it was a tiny bit more understeery, but it wasn't slow per se. But what it did was it gave you a car that was in the middle of the corner so understeery that then you had to be rotating the car more on the exit, but you didn't have the track or ability to do so without losing rear grip. So you put yourself in a situation where you have to compromise rear grip. You have the rear slide, you have to sort out that rear slide, and the slide is losing your time, right? But you put yourself in a situation where you have the slide because there wasn't enough rotation done in the middle of the corner, right? Because here the car was just understeering. So the slide on the exit sure is a problem, but it's important here to understand what's the connection between that slide here that is happening on the exit to that mid corner, because you put yourself in the situation where the slide on the exit is going to happen regardless, because there's so much rotation that still need to be done, right? So sure, the slide on the exit is what's costing you time ultimately, but it's important to understand why you ended up in a situation where the slide happens in the first place. And it's because you just had to rotate the car still on the exit, while it's totally possible with all the speed that you're carrying into the corner to rotate the car sufficiently before that exit, right? Okay, on Rouge. So already on Rouge we saw a little bit of that, what I was talking about, that you were just not committed enough on the entry. You didn't have any major issue, right? But we saw next lap that there was that little wiggle you went for, right? So here, look how much steering you have to still input here, right? And you see that you're gonna go off the track and you're getting that slide. So you survive. But overall, that the speed that you're carrying through it is gonna be small. If you would do that mistake a tiny bit, if you would lose the car a tiny bit more, that will result probably in a spin, right? So you can see how, because here you're very tentative on how you're gonna enter the corner, theoretically the timing is right, but you just didn't commit enough from the outside and overall enough to the corner, right? So you should have been a tiny bit wider and commit more. Because you were tighter, you couldn't commit as much, and because you were not able to commit as much, again, you ended up, look, the problem is going to be similar. You ended up with the car being in the need of rotation at the exit of the corner, and you have the slide, right? So the problem is not the slide, the problem is the entry. Yes, the slide is what's causing you the loss of time, but the problem isn't the slide, the problem is what put you in the situation that caused the slide to happen. And the issue is the entry and how you're committing to the corner. You're not enough on the left, and you're not committing in aggressive way enough, because here you look that you're going into the corner and you have the car that's pointing too much to the outside, and you're just ending up in a situation where the car is gonna be in need of rotation at the top of the hill, where it's not able to rotate without losing grip. So you have a similar example in terms of concept behind it. It's just that it's happening in a completely different type of corner. But in terms of like logical concept, it's the same. There's not enough rotation done at the there's not enough rotation done at the beginning of the corner, and overall setup to the corner and setup of the exit isn't done with enough care to properly manage your exit. And here's the same. The entry into the corner and overall rotation to the corner isn't managed well enough, and you end up with the exit where there's too much rotation still to be done. It's the same issue, but in terms of like driving technique and what you're doing with the brake, what you're doing with the steering, sure, that's different, but just the concept, the logical concept behind it, it's the same. And now, as always, because it happens every single time, I will not be surprised if we could go now throughout entire track and throughout entire lap of yours, and every single corner, or majority of them, they're gonna have similar problem, that you are not managing well enough the moment at which rotation happens and how much of the rotation you have at each phase of the corner, right? So you're overall probably trying to surely rotate the car through the corner sufficiently, but you're not in control enough of when that rotation happens and how much of it at each exact point there is of that rotation, right? But it's very important. So here, overall, there could be a tiny bit more commitment to that curb on the inside, so you don't need to overslow the car as much, and you're missing the apex. That's fine, not enough trail braking, but overall you are not missing the corner, and positioning is decent. So in terms of that, like went through, you are positioning the car into the corner, or at least you're attempting and you're trying to position the car into the corner nicely, so that's good to see. Overall, your car's positioning is nice, it's just then your execution sometimes is compromising when and where you are able to place the car in the end, right? But I can see that you're having great intentions in terms of where you want to position the car, so that's good that you're at least positioning the car in all the right places of the track, which, like I said, it's the first step to being able to repeatedly and consistently, lap after lap, do the same thing through each corner. But then here, look how and here this is gonna be here purely about the finesse of your control of your inputs, right? But the problem that here you're gonna have is that on the entry here, the car initially gets a little unstable, then you stabilize it by going as you're going on the throttle. So initially it gains grip and you straighten out the steering, but then you touch the curb. Did you touch the curb? I believe you did. You did touch the curb, and then the car again goes into oversteer, and then you have to sort that out again, right? So we have again a situation where here, because you're not controlling that entry sorry, with enough finesse, and you are hitting that curb there on the inside, you have to sort out the slide. Little things like that, right? Here you lose very little time because of that, but overall, like I said, that peak rotation used to happen only at one point, while for you there are again 2 points at which it happens, because it happens first here too early because it's not the apex yet, and then you start accelerating as you're stabilizing the car and sorting out that little moment on the entry as the car had a wobble. But then you do that too aggressively, and you touch the curb, and you get another oversteer, and the car again goes between different stages too many times through the corner. It goes from stability to instability to stability to instability again, and then back to stability. Here you did that mistake of what I was saying, that you need to treat this as a double apex, and you're going too much from the, you're trying to go too much from the outside of the corner, and the corner is just super long. You cannot do that because there's just so little grip here. You cannot somehow make the car grip up from the outside of the corner to the middle and then go back to the outside again. It's just not possible here because the track is going downhill. So you have to treat it as a double apex, hit the first apex as you're trail braking into the corner, and avoid steering so aggressively like that. That's because you're just scrubbing too much front tires, and if you're gonna work on your trail braking technique more, you're gonna find yourself without needing to steer as much in the middle. Hello. And what you probably also usually find that when you do that, well, the car is stable because you're going over the limit of the front tires. So the rear tires are not on the limit, so they're just so the car is just understeering, and it's inherently stable because of that. But then because it's inherently stable in the middle of the corner, then when you go back from the state of stability into the oversteer, that's such a sudden balance change that then you have to correct it, right? As for me, the car was already unstable on the middle of the corner, so I was able to use that instability to, in a very controlled way, continue that exit with the rotation and head in the middle of the corner. While you have understeer in the middle, that then you go on the throttle and you're just waiting at which point it's gonna snap into the other state again of instability. And it happens here, and you need to correct it, right? Here this is overall slap because you just turn in so much early. So here overall the line is bad, but again going back to the same problem, remember that here if you're going from the stability that you have in the middle that you just caused because you stopped braking so much so early, and you steered in so much in the middle, that you got a car that's inherently stable in the middle. Well, that's cool, but then if you're gonna go hard on the throttle, suddenly the car is gonna go from that stability to instability on throttle. but then you don't have control over when it's gonna happen, so you have to wait for it. If you have to wait for it and react to it, well, you're not gonna be able to always react with the perfect precision. So and you're always gonna get a snap as you're going between two states. Here, again, look how your overall line got fucked up again here, because you're going from a stable car to unstable car for a second, right? Then you're stabilizing it again, but by straightening it out, and then you're turning in again, right? So it again went through way too many times through different states of no rotation, rotation, no rotation, rotation, right? It needs to be way more smoother in one single car movement. In terms of inputs, yes, you're gonna be playing with them, but in terms of the car's behavior and how it's going through the corner, that needs to be done in one single motion. The car needs to go from no rotation to rotation once, while for you it's going between rotation, no rotation, then rotation again, then no rotation. And because it's changing those states the whole time, it's more difficult for you to get a hang of what's happening, and then you just end up with the car being overly stabilized here in the middle. You go on the throttle and you find yourself with it being too early. But overall, it's just difficult for you to judge when to go on the throttle, because probably those exits are just so much inconsistent for you, because you're playing too much with the car being once rotating and it's being stable, suddenly it's unstable, then it's again stable as you stabilize it, then it's again unstable as you're trying to rotate it, right? It's going between those two states too much. It's not necessarily the driving style. It's more about how you think about it in your back of your head, right? What's overall mythology behind it, right? But then you just start thinking differently about the corner, how you're gonna approach it, and then whatever you do with your inputs will probably just adjust automatically. Well, that's my job. Right? So here we had again, obviously the corner is a little scruffy, especially here on the transition, right? But it's more important to see again why that mistake on the transition happened. So why did it happen? Why did you get forced into a situation you're doing a mistake? So look again how on the entry, now you're going into the corner, now there's a lot of rotation happening and you realize, shit, there's too much rotation. And then you're stabilizing the car and suddenly the car is stable, and now the car is too stable and you have to, and then you have to rotate it more. So you do rotate it more, but then it's too much and you get a snap, right? So again, literally copy paste of turn 1 and Rouge. There you find yourself in a situation where there's too much rotation to be done at the exit of the corner because the entry wasn't managed well enough to ensure that all the rotation is done before you go on the throttle, right? So we have that issue where you're going between the states of stability, instability. Now the car is rotating a lot, then you're stabilizing it again, now there's stability, right? But because you went between those different states so many times, the balance got fucked up and you just end up in a situation where you are still in the need of just a tiny bit more rotation, right? It's not much, well, but it is some compromise that you have to work on, and you just do a mistake because you're just forced into a situation that you're not prepared for. That's normal. Like, mistake like that happening is completely natural. It's completely normal for you to make a mistake when you're trying to correct something, because you're just reacting to something you were not prepared for. That's absolutely normal. And everyone does that. If you are gonna be forced into reacting to something, you're never gonna react to it properly. With good practice, with great instincts, you can work on that, sure. But that's not the way to go. You cannot drive in a way that you're just reacting to the situation happening. You have to drive in a way where you're gonna create situations which you're fully in control of. So here, if you're gonna drive in a way where you're just changing the balance of the car constantly, because you're gonna here be driving in a way where you're constantly changing the balance of the car. You're playing with it so much that its balance is constantly getting fucked. It's stable, it's unstable, and stable, it's unstable. And the balance of it is getting so fucked, you at some point in the corner you're gonna end up with a situation you're not prepared for. Then you're not prepared for it, and you do a mistake. And mistake is that's fine. Like, you doing mistake in such situation because you're not prepared for, that's completely understandable. And the mistake itself is, yes, that's what's costing you time, but the problem is having that situation in the first place where you're not prepared for it, because everything else between is so fucked up. No, I'm not from Bologna. I'm from Poland, from Lublin. So if I may go once again back to that replay with the Ferrari, right? So to again explain that concept a little bit. To Brussels and Fania again, right? Look how even though I am constantly on the limit and constantly I am in need of doing some sort of adjustments, I'm not playing with the balance of the car. The car always remains balanced in the same way. It retains its balance, and it's the state in which it is in terms of stability always is retained, right? I am overall playing a little bit with the inputs and playing with the steering, but ultimately I'm trying to have the car that is always balanced in the same way, and I'm controlling rotation in a way that I'm only adding rotation only when I'm decelerating and only releasing rotation only when I'm accelerating. While for you, you're throughout the braking zone, into Fania here, right? Into this corner throughout the braking zone, you were initially no rotation, then there was a lot of rotation, then there was no rotation, right? And you're constantly changing the balance of the car. While for me, yes, even though I'm playing with the inputs constantly and changing this thing, throughout the entire corner, I'm just smoothly adding more and more and more and more rotation, all the way to the point when I stop braking and I start accelerating, right? It's the same here into Brussels, where throughout the braking zone, I'm just adding more and more and more and more and more rotation all the way to the apex. And when I go on the throttle, I'm always in a very similar position that I'm in control of. And now I'm fully prepared for what's gonna happen when I go on the throttle. When I go on the throttle, I'm not just waiting for a random oversteer that's gonna happen at a random moment, because I'm fully in control of the situation, and I know the moment at which the oversteer is gonna happen. So then I'm so much better prepared to control that oversteer, and then on top of that use that oversteer to my advantage to rotate the car on the throttle, right? I'm driving in a way where I'm giving myself so much more control over the situation, where with your driving being a bit more scruffy, it puts you so many times in a situation where you're facing moments that you're not prepared for, and then making a mistake is just gonna happen regardless, right? So it's not about making that mistake, it's about creating situations that are gonna make you do mistakes because you're just reacting to just random situations that are happening, right? And for you, that issue is that you're just changing the balance of the car way too many times, especially through the corner, through the entry to the corner. So here into the phone, look as well, that it's just one smooth motion of the car as I'm just adding rotation into it. More and more and more rotation on throttle, and I know that from that point there's no more rotation that needs to be done, so because I controlled when that rotation happened through the car and how much of it happens, right? While for you, you're doing it so much more on and off, and you're not fully controlling when that rotation happens and how much of it happens in each part of the entry and each phase of the entry. If you can just have that in the back of your head, that you need to control more when that rotation happens and how much of it happens, and that you want to add rotation in a smooth way all the way to the apex, right? If you just drive in a way that you have that in the back of your head, that's gonna straight away change everything else, because you're gonna drive in a way that's structured on top of a structure that ensures the rest. It's so much easier to do, right? So majority of the times for a lot of people, it's always gonna be some fucked up fundamental like that, on which then the driving is, and their technique is then built up. And it's for me, it's tough to judge the driving technique itself, because I can see that for example, your overall trail braking technique is gonna be determined by how overall what sort of lines you're aiming for and what sort of entry you're aiming for. It's tough for me to judge that trail braking itself, right? It's more that I can tell you that you're going into the corner thinking about it overall in the wrong way, and then you just try to do that as to your best ability, sometimes trail braking more, sometimes less, but it's not necessarily the trail braking on the entry that will be a problem. It's just gonna be the concept of that rotation through entire corner, through entire entry, if you know what I mean, right? A lot of the times it's not going to be about inputs themselves. The inputs are just going to be the product of the whatever your current driving looks like, right? But they're just a product. The problem usually is more with the concept and the way of thinking about driving. You work on that, and that's just gonna unlock so much more potential for you, and you're gonna be able to work on your technique and inputs just naturally, and everyone will have different inputs altogether regardless. Like at the top level, remember that at the top level we're driving with the lap times that are so similar, yet you can look at our driving and the way we're managing our inputs, and we're managing that rotation. The way we're managing that rotation is similar, but we're doing it with completely different inputs. That's what I'm saying. So you look at my lap from this perspective, and you look at George's lap from this perspective. Where is George? There is George. And you look at George's lap, for example, from this perspective, whatever it's gonna be like for did he do a 16 here? Whatever. If you look at his lap from this perspective, it's gonna look almost similar. It's gonna be like exactly the same lap you're watching from this perspective. But then you look at it from the inside, and you look at his inputs, and the inputs are gonna be way different. He's gonna be steering in a different way. He's gonna be adding the steering in some different moments. He's gonna be suddenly adding more steering mid-corner where I don't do that. Sometimes I'm gonna add more steering mid-corner where he doesn't do that. Here George is gonna suddenly bro steer in the middle of the corner. He usually does that. He's gonna do the dabs of the brakes in a tiny different way, right? The technique with and the inputs, they're gonna be different between every single driver. But the concept of like the lines and how and the rotation that you're inducing in the car and the timing of it all, that's gonna be the same. Well, it's tough to say. I'd say that it's so complicated that there probably isn't one. Because, like, the thing is that because driving, especially in ACC, I think also what I'm saying is especially real in ACC, because we are at the end of the day always playing around the limit. We're not driving precisely directly on the limit of the tire and a specific input. Then it's just the fastest, right? Because that is the case for the line, for example, right? Because at the end of the day, you are trying to execute a certain line and get a certain rotation at the given point of the corner, right? There is a best point at which you can have maximum rotation to the corner. There is best positioning that you can have for a corner. That's true. But because all of that then is done with you playing around the limit with the tire, then how you play around that limit, then that's always gonna differ. And every single driver will have their own ways of just making the car get to the limit because of just how in a very fluid way you go under and over the limit just a tiny bit and just playing with it. But input-wise, I wouldn't say there is a best way to do it, because I mean you can just see it by, like I said right now, looking at different drivers and their driving technique. Everyone will have it a tiny bit different. In terms of inputs, we are aiming to achieve the same thing, and there is that one thing that you are aiming to do, and there is one best way to go through the corner. That's for sure. But just because it's so much complex after that, different inputs could give you same results. Yeah, exactly. But so to follow that up, I could also say that that could be a problem where people see driving style, and sometimes they say that their driving style is just wrong, or they need to change their driving style. Well, sometimes they're right if they're saying that with their driving style, if they're putting into that whole category everything about their driving, right? But like majority of the times, like I said, there's nothing wrong with their driving style. The problem is like overall concept behind how they're taking a corner, or how they're thinking about how they're using their driving style. Sometimes there's not much wrong with the way they're inputting their inputs to the car, but they're doing it at a totally wrong time because they think that's the right time to do it, right? And the problem isn't that they're doing it in that particular way, or the problem isn't necessarily the timing of it, or maybe yes, the timing then is the problem, but then the problem of that timing is that they think that was the correct way to go, right? And then they're just trying to use their correct driving style, but to basically drive the corner incorrectly, if you know what I mean. At least that's gonna be the case for like everyone until, I don't know, last 3/10, 2/10. Like seriously, you're gonna have people driving in totally different ways. When you're looking at just the detail in their driving at the top level, everyone's gonna drive completely differently. And the more each car enables you to and has a wider window, the more that's gonna be a case. I mean, like in real racing, you can see those differences being even bigger. In sim racing, obviously, as we're having more sterile environments, with it still being just a simulation and there being so many less factors at play, obviously the case of what I'm saying being true is less. Like that window within which our driving styles are different, that window is smaller, right? Different driving styles in reality, even for example like in Formula 1, if you just see how different drivers drive there, driving styles there are gonna vary a lot more than what, for example, it is the case in ACC. But then, for example, a driving style in a game that's way more simplified, well, there you're gonna almost see no differences, just because there's only one way to drive best, right? But then as you get so many more factors that are at play to how the car generates its grip, and overall you get into more realistic tire behavior with you being able to play around the limit, not having to be in one specific window, very tight window that requires you to do exact input. If that window is higher and allows you to get certain behavior out of the car with different input, then you'll see those differences. And ACC definitely, for sure, is one of those games that allows you to get certain behavior out of the car in multiple different ways. So if you're talking specifically about ACC, definitely different driving styles will be there, and different inputs will be there, just because it's just possible to get the same behavior out of the car in a different way. But then we're aiming for the same sorry, not for the same input, we're aiming for the same car behavior, because obviously that's what then defines the line and where the rotation is going to happen in the car, and so on and so on and so on. Let me see if I have like a replay of any other nice spal up. I think I'm gonna finish up the stream soon. I don't know. I might do it, because I haven't done any league racing for a while now. I mean, I've done other leagues, but I haven't done a pro series in a while, so I might go back to it, sure. So now, because now we finished that Rennveld and Championship I was doing, sorry, with Jardier. So So might do a Pro Series. So competitive right now. I'll need to get up to speed first, because everyone is so fucking fast right now. Oh, wait. Well, I said that I can just at the end maybe go to the replay when we were driving in the wet in that race. Although that's a bad thing to look at, because that was early in the race. Yeah, but I mean, those are different times. That Porsche was so good. Ah, that Porsche was a really fucking good car right there. I was enjoying it so much. Right now in ACC, I'm sad to say that there isn't a car that I can enjoy as much as I did enjoy that old Porsche in other versions of ACC. Like, it's just so good. ACC on its own is still a really fucking great sim. Don't get me wrong. But for me personally, there isn't a car that just stands out that I could enjoy as much as I did that car back in the day. That's gonna be later in the race. Yeah. There's a lot of good cars now. I mean, like, at the end of the day, there is... It's the same replay, I'm dumb. At the end of the day, there is a lot of good cars now in ACC. So, in that regard, it's difficult to decide which car it's the best for you to pick to do best in, because every single car is so damn competitive. And obviously back in the day you could make an argument that Porsche was just so strong, you could easily pick it, and as long as you can tame it, you'll be fine. Not on every track, but on majority. Sure, that could be, you could make that argument. For me, I was surely driving that car purely just because I fucking loved and enjoyed it from the beginning of the game. I mean, I was driving it forever, so... Oh my god! That replays as well from the same laps. Wait. No, a Porsche Cup is a completely different beast though. If that's gonna be exactly the same replay... No, it's not the same replay. Perfect. That's the replay I wanted. Is that the replay I wanted? That is kinda not the replay I wanted, because at this point I was driving like a fucking maniac. I was driving so bad at this point. That's because I was so tired. Okay. Give me a sec. At some point I'm gonna find that perfect replay. Bear with me. Just to finish off the stream. Okay, now we can cook. Yeah. Ooh, now there's a lot of frames, so we can definitely look at that. Okay, let's look at this lap. Looks like a decent lap time in the way. Turn 1 is pretty much the same. Don't touch that curb. With Rouge it's gonna be even more of a case that you have to really commit early, because if you don't, you're gonna fully have issues at the top. But like concept of it, same. Just do as much energy at the bottom as much as possible. Just remember there's a fucking puddle there in the middle, so that's gonna make things more difficult. Don't use the curb. Prioritize the car positioning. Have the car straight on the curb. I mean, it looks almost the same in the way, just that the car is sliding so much more, but the concept behind it is so much more similar, right? Again, don't use curb. Short shift, car straight on the curb. That was a bit messy, but it's just so difficult here to pick the proper point. There's just so much dancing you have to do around the limit, but as you can see, the concept behind driving is the same, and majority of the lines are the same. It's just that you're taking a lot more to the extreme. The idea of having the car straight at the exit. You're just making sure that the car on the exit is even pointing as straight as possible, even more so when done in dry, and the rest of it is the same. It's just that different track lanes, right? And when you're on the curb, straight. And then obviously Blanchiment is a lift, but lift early, commit into it, and you'll be fine. Brake deep into the corner, accelerate early out of here. I mean, lines are the same. It's more that you're just playing with the balance of the car so much more, and obviously the paddles are unsettling the car the whole time, so you have to control that. But the way you're rotating the car for the corner is the same. And look at, again, that thing with the rotation we were talking about when looking at the Audi lap. More and more and more and more and more rotation, peak rotation, accelerating less and less and less and less rotation. Then when the car is finally accelerating fully out of the corner, then really properly straightening out a lot. More and more and more and more rotation, peak rotation, start accelerating as straight as possible on the curve. More and more and more and more and more rotation, now start accelerating. Here you need to slide it a lot and just try to finesse your weight out of there because it's just super wet. And here again, more and more and more and more and more and more and more rotation. Minimum rotation, go on the throttle, rotate the car on the throttle here to tighten up the corner, to open up this one, throw it in, go on the throttle, straighten it out, bam. Throw it in, go over the paddles that are gonna make the car wash out, straighten it out, throw the car in, aggressive on throttle, you have to be aggressive with Ferrari, bam. I just love driving in the wet. Throw it in, bam! That's how we drive in the wet. Throw it in, bam. There's not much things that you do differently. But like I said, obviously when it's slippery, there's so much more overall grip management that we have to do with your inputs, just because it's slippery. For example, this was a race start that we had for Rennfelden series recently, but it was on a damp track. so the inputs are just going crazy, and obviously I like, you know, on the brakes, off the brakes, on the brakes, on the brakes, and throttle, riding the pedals, going completely ham with the steering. I mean, there's just so much happening with the inputs, right? Oh my god, that was crazy. But just as an idea, you can be very aggressive with the inputs, and that's not necessarily gonna suddenly like make the car completely go oversteery, understeery. Like, surely ultimately you want to drive in a clean way. But like, for example, that lap in the Audi we were looking at, like there, if the car is very aggressively going between different states of balance, well, that's gonna be a big issue. But if it's just an input that's aggressive, but it's not that input isn't necessarily changing the balance of the car much, and is not making a big change to overall to the balance of the car and its state, then it's gonna be fine for the most part. Right? There can be a lot of those little aggressive inputs here and there. That's, for example, my driving style. But I have to do it in a way where I ensure that the car's balance is retained, right? Because there's probably shit tons of happening with the steering wheel here and throughout this corner. Yep. And that's just my driving style. But that doesn't mean that my car constantly goes between the different states of balance, because that has to be retained and be done really smoothly. Anyway, that's that. Actually, I'll just have it in the back of in the background playing, because why the hell not? To finish off the stream. So yeah, that was that. Like I said, why the hell not do it like a weekly thing? Because that's cool, I think, and really interesting. Obviously, I'll try to think about the concept of it all, of how those streams could look like to make them maybe a bit better. But that would be cool to make the next one at Suzuka next week. There is already a Suzuka track guide. So if you're looking for next week of LFM, I mean, we barely started this one, but if you are looking for a Suzuka track guide, remember that for the next week for Suzuka, there is already a Suzuka track guide that I did a while back. So there is gonna be that. And yeah, I am probably gonna do this kind of stream next week as well, because why the hell not? And let's see, maybe we can make it like a weekly thing. So go through like entire track and talk about different things on a given track, and then maybe go through like a replay of someone from the chat to use it as an example from which everyone else can also learn. Well, the problem is that the setups are already so well established, and there is so little setup work that we are actually doing, because the setups are so fucking dumb right now, that like there's not much setup work we're doing, and I probably wouldn't want to make like show you like a setup from created completely from the scratch, because like I understand what you want to, what you would like me to do, and I would like to do it. It's just that with the current state of ACC, it's not possible because the setups are so dumb and so min-maxed, right? There is almost no fine-tuning you're doing, because if there was some kind of fine-tuning you could be doing with your setup, just make it perfect for your own taste, I would be happy to do that. The problem is that there is not much things you are actually doing in current ACC to make the setup suit you in terms of like driving style or something. There's just one setup that just makes the car work fast, and you just drive it and it's good, and there's nothing you need to do with it. Maybe you can adjust, like, I don't know, anti-roll by a click or two on, or the bump stop range on the rear or the rate. There's little things like that. There's so little things to do there. There's no need for that. But we have something on Track Titan that's gonna be happening. I don't know when, but there is something coming to Track Titan that is gonna be related to creating your own setups. So yeah, I'm not gonna say anything else, but there are things coming in the future to Track Titan that are related to setups that are not only just setups themselves that are being sold there. So in terms of setup knowledge, there will be some stuff like that coming later to Track Titan. So yeah, watch out for that, and obviously check out all the links in the description. Join HYMO Discord, because there's a lot of cool stuff happening right there, and if you have any issues, setup related, driving related, that's the perfect place. Check out all our setups that we are having for you on Track Titan as well, with the great subscription model, and obviously great Track Titan comparison app, because for example, right, if I can quickly go to this, let me quickly see properties. Bam. For example, here you can see Track Titan. Let me... Oh, no, that's the wrong... Yeah, here. For example, here you can see the Track Titan lap comparison app. And here, for example, just as an example, like I said, that for example at Spine in Fania on the track, I did a mistake by going into the corner just a tiny bit too hot, right? And I, for example, here I have a comparison of my lap versus my theoretical best, right? So I can have can see here that mistake on my lap, and I can see how's the delta looking through that corner, what did I do with my throttle, what did I do with my brake, how was my speed through the corner, and I can compare my inputs. I can see on the map how was my line through the corner, what happened. The app shows me where the time was lost. And the good thing about it is that all my laps and all our laps from HYMO, from all our guys, basically every single lap I ever do is always recorded on Track Titan. You can probably find it, and you can have, like, for example, your lap here and pick it, and then you can pick another lap from some, for example, community laps. I can probably find Tinko van der Velde or Mr. Ukog, Mr. George Booby, right? And I can, for example, compare my lap to George's lap. I mean, right now I'm comparing my lap to his quali lap, which is gonna give me completely ridiculous time differences, right? But you can use Track Titan to not only get our setups, but also compare your driving and record your driving data and compare to our driving. And like I said, because I have the Track Titan running in the background the whole time, every single lap I ever do in ACC, that is yep, I should stop that. Every single lap I do in ACC, is recorded on TrackTitan, and you can look at it and look at my data and look at my driving on TrackTitan and compare yourself, and you can see what we're doing differently. And for example, what I can show you different, what we're talking about today, right? Like I said, our inputs are different. What we're doing with the throttle and when it's different. What we're doing with the brake, that's different. Obviously, time delta is completely fucked up because I'm now comparing my race lap versus his quali lap, so it's weird, right? But for example, from a speed graph, you can see how a speed graph, deceleration, minimum speed point, acceleration, that always follows the same concept, and that's what is important. That needs to be the same, and there can be an absolute best line that the speed graph can follow. That is true, and that the geometrical line that you're following can be. Those two can be the best. Everything else, that's up to you. As long as you are getting with those inputs, the line and the speed and the rotation through the corner, that's nice. But you can use the TrackTitan app to get all that magic and compare your driving to ours. So for example, if you are trying to get up to speed at Spa this week, you can compare your lap probably in any car to the reference laps we have set on TrackTitan when we're creating our setups. All those lap times that are there advertised on the setups, all those laps are here for you to compare on TrackTitan, and you can easily find them. I don't know who was doing the Ferrari lap. I think Valentin was doing the Ferrari lap. But if you're looking for Audi, then well, I would have to probably load up my own Audi lap. Or for example, I can go into leaderboards, Spa, and then we're going with the Audi. And we have Dara, we have Tinko, I think that's the Tinko's lap, and I can just click on it, and there's Tinko's Audi lap. So for example, if here my friend that was showing us his lap in the Audi, you can just load up Tinko's lap and compare one-to-one your lap with his lap, and I think on some of the laps, you can also, on top of seeing the minimap and the inputs, you can also see the video on board of the lap. It's not available yet for every single lap, but it's for some. I think here it said Audi. No, those laps are not done with BOP. But remember that we're also driving. So whenever I'm doing my own LFM sessions, like I said, my own sessions all of them are recorded. So if I go, for example, into all the sessions, you can see all the sessions here I did when we were doing that Mount Panorama race, right? So I don't remember which. I think that's gonna be a session. So that little replay from the Mount Panorama race I showed you, right? You can see everything here. All that race is literally right there on TrackTitan. If you want to look at any of the laps from this race, for example, that I was doing in this stint, they are at TrackTitan. It's all out there. I don't know. That you would have to ask on the Discord and ping Charlie or Felix. They will probably know. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know that which exact version gives you that. So for details of how exactly that works, you would have to ask on the Discord. But overall, the app is so useful because, like I'm telling you, all our driving is there, and you can use the app easily to compare yourself to all our driving we're doing, not only on hot laps but also in the races that we're doing. But anyway, that's that. So thank you very much for watching the stream. Check out all those links in the description below, and I'll see you next week on Suzuka. Hopefully, that's the plan. And if anyone, that Lambo, and if anyone wants to give me that replay as well for the next week, that would be highly appreciated. And obviously, every single week we're gonna try to make the stream better and better, so it's also nicer for the viewers. So thank you very much, and see you next week. Bye bye.